Born in Halifax, Trish Sala is the author of the Lambda Award-winning poetry collection Wanting in Arabic and of Lyric Sexology, Volume 1. She was shortlisted for the Dane Ogilvy Prize for LGBTQ Writers in 2018. She is currently an associate professor of gender studies at Queen's University and editor at the Journal of Critical Race Inquiry. Excuse me. Ali Blythe is the author of two critically acclaimed books exploring trans poetics: the debut collection Twoism and the follow-up Hymn Switch, which was named a Walrus Top 10 Book of the Year in 2019. His poems are published in literary journals and anthologies in Canada, England, Germany, and Slovenia. He lives in Victoria, BC. Trish and Ali, thank you, and over to you.
Hi, everyone. Trish, are we being shy a little bit? Thank you for that beautiful introduction.
Yes, thank you so much, Lise. And yeah, that was lovely. And it is wonderful to have had this opportunity to work with Ark and Ali to curate this extraordinary group of writers, queer and genderqueer and trans, two-spirit, non-binary. It's exciting to be able to celebrate with you. I've just recently seen the beautiful issue because I was away, and to see Sybil Lamb's art up and close and personal, and to read the poems on the page, which is a glorious experience. So I want to welcome everybody here today and thank you for joining us to celebrate the issue. So we are going to move to our readers, but Ali and I were going to say a little bit about the issue itself first. And I wanted to, oh, Ali cannot unmute himself. Thank you. Maybe you'd like to say something first, Ali, about the issue?
Oh, there we go. Thank you. Yeah. I was just flabbergasted by the quality of work that came in from all over the world. It was just absolutely stunning, and the stuff in this book is incredible. It really is, and I'm going to read it again and again for a long time. It was such a pleasure to work with Ark, who feels like a poetic home for me here, and also to work with you, Trish. And I'm calling in today from Victoria, BC, in Wasanich, Koswepsum, and Lekwungen lands, and blessed to do so. But I don't want to take too long here, because I want to launch right into the issue and our first reader, because I can't wait for everybody to hear them, really. So without further ado, our first reader is River Halen Gurry, and I'll read the bio in a moment. But I just wanted to say, when this poem came in, and sorry to steal your thunder, River, but it starts, "The enemy as you began to iron your shirt and the iron broke." I was just in to the poem, and it just goes from there, and it's such a generous and smart poem. So I can't wait to hear the whole thing. And I did call River last night just to say hello before this reading started, and they called it their secret pandemic poem. So I hope I get to hear a little bit more about that. So River Halen Gurry is a non-binary trans writer of Catalan and Danish descent, living on the unceded Indigenous land in Geojage. Their most recent works are, and I love this title, "I Looked for the Exit, Found a Sleeve, beautiful with Sky Brown Press, and another forthcoming collection with another beautiful title, Dream Rooms from Book Hug Press. So, River, I welcome you.
Thank you so much for that generous introduction, Ali. Thank you so much, both Ali and Trish, for including me in the issue. It's such an honor. This lineup is incredible. The issue is incredible. I got my copy in the mail the other day. So yeah, I'm just going to read my piece. It's called The Enemy. Content warning for, there's a brief reference to suicide near the end. So, so do what you need to do to take care of yourselves. Yeah, The Enemy. The enemy is you began to iron your shirt and the iron broke. The enemy is it's a pandemic and the stores are closed. The repair shops are closed. And more than anything, the enemy is the fact you care about this at all right now. You joke with a friend, you like to make jokes at your own expense, and your friends like that about you, how neurotic you are, caring about an iron in a pandemic and inviting them to laugh with you. So now the enemy is that friend laughing at you, and you think about the iron and its uses. The iron is for the shirt to make your shoulders look square and your tits as flat as possible. You select your shirts very carefully for this. Ironing them helps, creates an exoskeleton. So you will look like what people think of as masculine without always having to bind your tits, which is, in this pandemic, as always, a risk factor for pneumonia. So the iron is for your safety, a weapon, the enemy, your tits, the binder, pinching them. The idea a man needs a flat chest, that tits make you a woman, that these are the options. So it's double-edged, I mean, obviously, and broken. It can't fix this any more than you can fix it. You stood over the sink with a screwdriver and an oven mitt, trying things. And the enemy is that 2 months after the fact, when you finally call the repair center, they've reopened. The person on the phone can either tell your iron is broken and your binder is in the wash, or never credited those rituals in the first place, just the sound of your voice. Madame, they say, fixing you. Yes, the enemy is that word, madame, the appliance repair technician misgendering you in a pandemic, increasing your risk factor for pneumonia. And you tell them your iron is broken, and he is otherwise friendly. And you can play this game too, gender that person he on the basis of voice and their quickness to gender you, and the presumed fact that they are surrounded by working irons wearing a flattened shirt, you can easily picture it. The enemy is imperceptible spray. So you cycle out to the appliance repair center on a borrowed bike that is too small because your own has a flat, the enemy, and because public transit is full of the enemy too right now, in more ways than one. And so the enemy is the sun and the hills and your very own thirst, your legs getting way up in your ribs, you're wearing your binder, you're planning to show that guy, that person, just how flat you are, naturally. And you wonder how your immune system works at all, how it could ever stay clear on what to fight and when. And you know, of course, it sometimes loses track and gets it backward, and people like you are more at risk of that, having an immune system that gets it backward. And the enemy is how much sense that makes, that the condition outside would enter, radiate through your relations microscopically. And a car honks at another car and you slip between them invisible, locked to a post, put on a mask, pass through a door, sweating, put the enemy on the counter for the enemy, who considers it and you. And you tell them your name is not the one on the receipt or the credit card, but a different word. And unlike most people, the enemy, they don't object or ask a question, just write it down. They seem gentle, if anything, a little faggy. You would not mind to be seen as this person's gender. The way you look, they look to your eye contains something of how you see yourself. And you tell them you find it tender. There are places devoted to fixing broken irons still. You don't say tender, you think it. You say it makes you glad. It's a relief not to be leaving your enemy to become someone else's problem, an ecosystem's problem. And they say places like this go out of business every year and you will be without your iron for a long time because the parts come from overseas and the borders are all but sealed. Please don't have false expectations because many forces oppose this work happening in any way efficiently. They do not say madame or you have learned to tune it out. For this whole section of the poem, you are blissfully untitled. You do not say my enemy or biosphere. And you think about the places like you struggling under a particular kind of capitalism. A month ago, your friend's roommate attempted. 3 weeks ago, an acquaintance's roommate went through with it. In 6 months, someone close to you will hand you their elegant folding knife when you ask, is there anything you don't want around right now? In the movies you grew up watching, it was attacks from outside. On a platform in an empty lot, a person like you turns and is strategically overwhelmed. Just as strategically, your work is circular and your tenderness takes public transit to her frontline job. In another month, when you decide to touch again, she'll confess she wants to pay more attention to your tits than she has been, but something makes her hesitate. Some symbolism makes her hesitate. And you will tell her she is not the problem. She's exempt from the problem. Your tits too. This is a space for interactions that are not the problem. And you say you understand, no problem. Fold the ticket into your wallet, thinking about this interval in which to not let, the perfect, to sleep with, to be your own, to better know. Thank you so much. Oh, I'm just seeing I wasn't looking at the.
Thank you so much, River, for that incredible reading. I love that poem so very much. I wanted to say, but didn't before, that of course, I, like everyone on Turtle Island, am also speaking from colonized land, the colonial city of Toronto, Tekaronto. And yesterday, I was in Nathan Phillips Square, where over 13,000 people were gathered in solidarity with Sheikh Jarrah and in protest against the ongoing Nakba. I think, the question of how we hold our responsibility and our complicity with colonizations around the globe, how we celebrate life in the midst of ongoing violences is not a simple one. I think part of the reason I was excited about doing this special issue was that I thought it might be a difficult issue, that it might hold difficulties around the state of colonial literature, CanLit in Canada, that it might worry at some borders and boundaries, and that it might carry, on the surface and under the surface, some of the difficult histories that shape any kind of conversation around gender in literature, racialization in literature, colonization in literature at this moment. So I hope people will read in the issue some of these difficulties, find them, lift them up, and think about them, because I don't think I think poetry holds us and allows us to engage the world, but it doesn't fix anything, of course. It just returns us to the problem in various ways. Perhaps with resources, perhaps with possibilities and energy. I was certainly energized by reading Cameron Awkward-Rich's poems in this issue. I was excited that Cameron submitted work to the issue. I have taught Sympathetic Little Monster, Cameron's first book, at least 3 or 4 times in the last few years, and was delighted to get to read Dispatch more recently. I've also spent time with an essay of Cameron's, Trans, Feminism, Reading Like a Depressed Transsexual, which might be read as a rejoinder to overly optimistic or overly euphemistic constructions of trans community. Any easy remedy is eschewed in that essay, as it asks us to spend time in the drag between what we feel and the communities we belong to, and turns us to love as one possibility for dwelling with ongoing difficulty. So without further ado, I will invite you to welcome Cameron Awkward-Rich, an extraordinary writer, thinker, poet, and I am delighted to hear Cameron's work today.
Thank you so much for that, Trish. It's always a pleasure to share space with you. Thank you, you and Ali, for collecting me together with all of these other brilliant poets. And thanks for letting me hang out with you in this Zoom room today. This has been one of the weird, bittersweet things about the pandemic, is that I've been able to see more people in a way that feels fuller sometimes than other parts of my life. So I'm gonna put very quickly into the chat just a link to a Google Doc with the text of the poems that I'm gonna read, just in case it makes it more accessible to you to read along. Yeah, and I won't say anything else about them other than to say that I'm speaking to you from Nonotuck Land, otherwise known as Northampton, Massachusetts, which is a sort of notorious white lesbian liberal kind of paradise, which has been eerily and disappointingly quiet this last week, despite despite all of the atrocities around the world. And that's sort of what this first poem is about. In the issue, this poem is called "Recognition is the Misrecognition You Can Bear," but I think that in the context of the work that it will ultimately be a part of, it's called "It Was the Best of Times, It Was the Worst of Times." It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Beautiful, she says, forgive me, but you are so beautiful. And not wanting to be seen now for what I am, dark splot ruining the idle, smile, say, thank you, it's okay, her hands on my hands, this white stranger in the coffee shop. And later at the polling station, again, so beautiful, bloom red inside, crab apple shadowing the heart. And later at the coffee shop, after hours of reading attentively, look up and there she is, the woman white with a different face. Don't worry, she croons. I think you're going to get an A. And I don't mean to complain. I am a professor, tenure track at the end of the university. I'm paid. Forgive me. I want to say as I turn the knob to the interior, roam the scarlet hour singing, gather sour fruit. Roam the road in the interior, nod the scarlet hours singing, gather by the bucketful, bloom, harden into bitter little fists, swallow where no one's looking, high in the magnolia, the white oak. When a boy no one could see, though had a name, flashing like a coin, he did not have the agency to spend, lived an inner life, could not bear the cost, pay attention, walked my body to the water of the world. It was beautiful, a shame, so beautiful. This next one is also called "It Was the Best of Times, It Was the Worst of Times." Before we were what we are now, or as some would prefer it, when we were latent, a shape moving beneath the blue of that first and longest winter. Yes, before us, I supposed it happened in other people, the wild inside, the violet blooming of what was never quite desire. Remember our first attempt? It was, frankly, disgusting. Wet birds in the closing distance, being thrown against and through the ice. I thought it would never turn in me. The easy way the others blushed and looked at photographs and whispered each other's names like they were golden bells ringing in a room from which I was perhaps forever barred. The tragedy of Peter is not, as you might think, that he remains a child, wavering forever on the precipice of what we might call love if we are lazy, a real life. No, the trouble is he never was a boy, never among the lost nor the living. He is, let's just say it, a structural position rather than a puny tyrant heart. It's true. I'm grown now. Looking back, it seems ridiculous, the gravity I gave you, your image hovering above me, as if you had in fact been the boy all along. What can I say? There was a time when we were young before which it simply hadn't occurred to me, the heart, though I was of course enthralled to it, though I did of course try desperately to shut it up. I didn't know yet that it was possible to be like that, unmade and made, that when you dropped me, I wouldn't fall but always fear it. There's just one more, also called "It Was the Best of Times, It Was the Worst of Times." It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It isn't that I was a boy, moving darkly through the years of my girlhood, a still mute kernel of future tense, scarred by language, memory, form, etc. It isn't that. On the phone, my father tells me he thinks of me as someone daring, someone who rushes headfirst into situations that promise pleasure, sure, a portion of it, but mostly pain, inevitable as pain is inevitable. I think you laugh at this description because you know me now, a me who startles from his skin if you so much as walk unannounced into the room. You were always interested in your own injury, my father's saying, rather than afraid of it. It's true. Do you remember that morning when, after sex, you did that thing lovers sometimes do in the movies? You moved across my body like a gardener, stopping to identify the foliage, what was roses, what weeds. There was all the obvious stuff, the scars like anchors on my chest, the tattoos, but the rest of it, anyway, I lied. I was afraid to tell you how little I cared for my life for no reason other than that it was and will interminably be mine. Thank you.
Well, that was just beautiful. Thank you so much. Wow, and it's so wonderful to hear it in your voice. I feel like I knew your voice when I read it on the page, but yeah, that was really beautiful. Oh, good. I'm glad Trisha's spotlighted too, because I'm about. Oh, I just want to say hi, mom. Hi, mom, who's just come in. Hi to my sister as well, Lisa, and I'm seeing some of the other contributors pop in, and I'm delighted to see you. So please wave and say hello. I'd love that. But anyway, I have the pleasure of introducing C.A. Conrad, and Trisha, I know you know C.A. a little bit, probably more than I do, but I am such a big fanboy that I wanted to say something. So the official bio is C.A. Conrad has been working with the ancient technologies of poetry and ritual since 1975. And so just to say the light and love that CA brings into this world and has brought into my world, the healing that I think their work does is so important. I was nervous even asking for a poem ritual from CA, and then to get the delighted, generous, immediate response of yes, and then the poem that came in that made me cry as soon as I read it. I'm just so thankful, and I also carry a little pocket of crystals in my heart, and that will actually in reality sometimes to remind me to them and what they stand for in this world. So anyway, Trish, would you please like to say something?
Yes. First, I also I want to echo Ali in giving my appreciation to Cam for that extraordinary reading and for joining us today. And I want to say that I love C.A. Conrad's work. I think I first met C.A. at the Troubling Tucson Transpoetics Conference that Tisu Tolbert and a bunch of lovely folks, some of whom who are here, organized back in 2013. I believe that's when I first met CA, or maybe it was at a Troubling the Line launch or something like that. You may have heard of that amazing book of trans and genderqueer poetry that Trace Peterson and TC put together. But I will always remember a book launch CA did in New York when my partner and I were visiting, I don't know, some 7 years ago, partly because it was an extraordinary launch and partly because we struggled to get the glitter that CA bathed us in and bathed that launch in out of Sarah Schulman's couch, since we were Sarah's guest at the time, and out of many subsequent apartments. And rather than that being a bad thing, it is a kind of temporal expansion of that launch over time to the a glory and beauty that is C.A. Conrad. So please welcome C.A. Conrad.
Oh, that's quite an introduction. Oh, can you hear me? Oh yeah, thank you so much, both of you. That was quite an introduction. And Cameron and River, that was fantastic. Am I the only one who was wondering what that was on the wall behind Cameron? I'm hoping it was a ladder for a cat. It always makes me happy when cats get things. Okay, I'm gonna jump into this. Can you see this? Can you see that? Okay, I'm gonna show that while I read the ritual. So I write from somatic poetry rituals, and I'm gonna just read through the ritual and then the poem that goes with it, and then share a couple more poems. The first crystal I received as a gift when I arrived in Philadelphia 36 years ago. I'm sorry, I don't read my prose very often. Let me start that over. The first crystal I received as a gift was when I arrived in Philadelphia 36 years ago. It is a large and exquisite piece of amethyst from my dear friend Pepe, who died of AIDS a few years later. She was a trans woman many of us young queers went to for comfort and guidance. She was our new age queen who taught me to read tarot. She also requested that I create a ritual to masturbate her penis one last time before what we now call gender confirmation surgery. She not only gave me amethyst, but she also taught me how to live with it and how to breathe and heal with it. We had many sick lovers and friends dying around us at the time. And the things she taught me are as vital today as they were when I first worked with her as a teenager. I dedicate this ritual to Pepe. I took 4 solid copper water bottles and placed 9 crystals in each, 3 of amethyst, 3 of carnelian, and 3 of rose quartz. Each container was then filled with water and sealed. I buried 1 in Minneapolis, 1 in Memphis, and 1 in Cheyenne, forming a triangle. The 4th was buried in Omaha, situated in the center of the triangle, and I called it the seat of the crystal grid. In Omaha, I buried the container in a secluded edge of a field just outside the city. I would get naked and sit with the crystal-filled copper container directly beneath me, and with a compass, I would align myself with Minneapolis. I then ate small amounts of dirt from the Minneapolis site and listened to an ambient recording I made at the location. Once I felt attuned, I then flooded my body with the recordings of recently extinct animals while writing. Then I would turn clockwise toward Memphis, eat a little dirt from the Memphis location, and listen to the site's ambient recording. After writing, I would shift position facing Cheyenne to repeat the process of dirt and recordings and writing. In the fall of 2019, I dug up the containers, brought them to Philadelphia, and left the crystals on the doorstep to Pepe's old building. My love to you, dear friend, teacher, sister. So this is the poem that's in the issue. Visit a living being to eat what falls from their body. I am the wagon wishing you would find me, a maple left uncut, the rock that smashes nothing, seeking a God who speaks to memories of life before the heart's affliction. Your cum tastes like hand sanitizer. What have you been up to? When too many die, we deceive despair with love, sex with a man at a funeral, destroying death in his car, a holy perforation for a ghost. For best wish, catch apple as it falls, eat seeds and worm to seal your destiny. Everyone puts what they've got into the wheel, driving across America, raw imagination faster than spirits keep up. I cannot remember the last day a digital watch was the only digital object in my life. The first heart transplant was the last day everyone alive had hearts we were born with, something to get used to. I was only 1 year old, but do not remember anyone objecting to someone keeping their strength with someone else's muscle. So this ritual and this poem are from a book that's coming out this September called Amanda Paradise. This poem is also from Amanda Paradise. Memories of why I stopped being a man, for Jason Dodge. It's normal if your cock gets hard while you are shooting, my uncle told me on my first deer hunt. Pythagoras knew the music of Jupiter and Mercury long before Nassau. But to begin again, no hero itching at the door. That never-ending search for weakness in neighbors, siblings, coworkers, rival football teams. After seeing the open body of muscle and blood, we had horrible ideas about what to do with our lives. Imagine how they gathered around the first cannon ever fired, sweaty, excited, rock hard. Before he died, Kalishnikov confessed to suffering unbearable nightmares. Surrender your nouns to my verbs, he said, he said, he said, he said. In a game of Russian roulette, I want a pair of glasses that can see the wind. I walk around town each night, watching the slightest breeze approach dry leaves like a premonition. After a million years of dreaming, the solution is still the same. Hold me to your bruised song until it warms me right. I'd like to end by reading just a few brand new poems. This is from a completely different ritual. I don't want to talk about the ritual. I just want to read the poems. Can you see that? Losing something too important to lose is hard the first time. So next time, ransom April's song before it finds itself. I took my time finding the right man to build this wall against the phantasm. We're rowing to the middle of the Bermuda Triangle. We send our love. A quest to italicize a period does not need anyone's approval, any more than it requires rude comments about wasting time. In the middle of our second plague, they said, look over here, new toys on Mars. Looking elsewhere is another kind of looking away. It was the same during the early years of AIDS. Just ask straight people my age. How can we point at a horizon yet still fear death? Just relax. It's not a white flag out the window. It's my new panties. I will never surrender. Box where we store our bodies before they are our bodies. Open a friend's refrigerator. Say, hello, future friend. Another machine, not as metal and oil, but mechanics of tree camouflage by camouflage. Spin inside little routines of our lives to grab our hidden language. The human being is a symptom of the Big Bang. Gun stores filled with shoppers. Bombs marking the sky with our pledge. And this is the last one that I just finished this morning. I was hoping it would be finished in time. The wishing we did at the shopping mall fountain leveled the place with its own lingering hope. Answering the call to arms with a toy piano. If our cells have always been here, what about the rage? What about depression, marked with a story? Somewhere in the world, the Jeep that killed O'Hara hurts every time you start it. Thank you.
Thank you, CA. Those poems are scintillating and shattering and send me reeling in all the best ways. It's such a joy to hear you read. I knew I would love the work that was in the issue. And of course, I knew that I would love the work that wasn't in the issue too. So
this morning,
thank you for sharing such, joyous and terrible insight. I love it. Yeah. So our next reader is Jiaqing Wilson Yang, and I'm very, very happy to have a chance to introduce Jia-Qing. She is an old friend. I guess we've known one another 15 years or so, something like that, maybe a little longer, I'm not sure. Anyway, her first book, Small Beauty, won a Lambda Literary Award. She is a musician, a talented poet, as you will see and probably already know. She works as a program coordinator focused on trans women survivors and sexual violence in Ontario. She's worked on the Trans Priorities Project, and she brings an analysis of the work of settlers of color to unmake colonialism, to connect with ancestors, and to transform their relationships to colonization while acknowledging those roles. I think everything she does. She is a brilliant writer, a lovely friend, and I am excited to hear her work.
Oh, there I am. Oh, look at all that lipstick on my teeth. Y'all can see that, hey? Yeah, no doubt. Thank you, Trish, for that lovely introduction. I'm sort of, it was really lovely. And I'm processing 15 years, and I guess that is right. Wow, what a lovely thing. So I'm gonna read a poem that I wrote for a friend, and yeah, I hope you like it. And if you don't, that's okay. That's okay too. So this poem's called It Never Comes From Your Enemies. She made you tea from ginger she grew in her bedroom, sweetened with molasses, a peeled root, dripping, as it fell into boiled water, slices scalding at the bottom of a glass. She shed the roots refracted through ginger leaves, verdant and sinking, as the iron sweetness of molasses breaks the surface, clinging to the cold back of a spoon, descending, dissolving in uneven droplets, spiraling. A gentle cyclone settling at the bottom of a glass. And you drank greedily until, tempted by sliced roots sliding into your mouth, you bite. The sting of the ginger root, fresh and ancient, seared your tender mouth like the truth of unexpected loss or frequent betrayal. A heat that turns your flesh to sponge, reminding you of a pain that will not be healed in our lifetime. And you spat it out, sipping the warm tea while your friends followed suit and ground her roots to pieces on the hard packed earth. She confessed her beauty, and you murdered it. The last two lines of that poem are adapted from a poem called Forward in a volume of poetry called Day/Break by Gwen Benaway. Thank you so much, Trish and Ali, for publishing this poem and for having me here today. I'm just thrilled and floored by the other readers so far. I'm so excited to see the next reader. So thank you so much.
Oh, that was just so beautiful, and so I feel completely disarmed after hearing that gorgeous poem read aloud. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it was wonderful to hear your work, Jia-Qing, and to be in the intimacy of the poem with you. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. So we have one final reader, S.J. Sindhu, who I'm delighted to introduce to you. And Sindhu's poem, To All My Suitors and the Aunties Who Send Them My Way, struck me as powerful and transformative until I hit the line, as a toddler at temple prayer meetings, I pretended to be a radio. And then suddenly it was a world, and the world of the poem floored me. So I am excited to hear SJ read a little bit about S.J. Sindhu, a Tamil diaspora author and educator. Sindhu's first novel, Marriage of a Thousand Lies, won the Publishing Triangle Edmund White Award for debut fiction and the Golden Crown Literary Society Award for debut fiction. It was selected by the American Library Association as a Stonewall Honor Book and was a finalist for the Lambda Literary Award and the VCU First Novelist Award. Sindhu's second novel, Blue Skin Gods, is forthcoming. Is it forthcoming or is it out? That I do not know, and so I will ask you to clarify. It is due in 2021 from Soho Press. Sindhu is also the author of two hybrid chapbooks, I Once Met You, But You Were Dead, which won the Split Lip Press Turnbuckle Chapbook Contest, and Dominant Genes, which won the Black River Chapbook Competition, and which will be published by Black Lawrence Press in 2022. S.J. Sindhu is assistant professor at the University of Toronto, Scarborough, and I am very excited to hear you read. Please help me welcome S.J. Sindhu.
Thank you so much. As far as land acknowledgements go, I'm currently on the stolen traditional territory of the Massachusetts and the Wampanoag and the Nipmuc peoples. I'm gonna read two very short poems. The first one, and thank you so much for having me read as part of this reading. I think of myself as a prose writer, so I'm very nervous in the presence of poets. I don't think of myself as a poet, so I'm very, very honored to be part of this reading and to be part of ARC. So thank you so much. This is to all my suitors and the aunties who send them my way. When I was young, my family kept 2 ducks and a goat in the backyard to give me duck eggs and goat's milk for breakfast. Now they ask me to accept a balding accountant, his body doughy, his politics centrist. I had chicken pox at 9 months old, and my aunts and uncles took turns fanning the sores with bundles of curry leaves so I wouldn't be tempted to scratch. Now they ask me to marry a man who expects me to cook for him on our first date. When I say I don't want an arranged marriage, they say it's not an arranged marriage if we date for a few months first. My aunties pass my photos and details around the globe, my eligibility stored in the cloud. They learn Gmail just so they can matchmake, by which they mean find me a boy who looks like their husbands, a boy who prays, who keeps it in the cast. And they say it's my decision, but not if my decision is no. In order to craft a wife who puts her husband first, you have to convince her she's not the seed in her own fruit. As a toddler at temple prayer meetings, I pretended to be a radio and I belted out Bollywood songs. And when they tweaked my ear and told me they'd turned off the radio, I twisted it again and turned myself on. I'm gonna read just one more poem. This one is called Gods in the Surf, and I'm putting the link in the chat in case anyone wants to read along. Gods in the Surf. I envy my American city friends, their impractical swimsuits made to be seen, not touched by sea, unable to stand in weak Florida surf. I was born by the ocean, an island child, the core of me, salt water and seagulls howling. We wade into the Gulf, the ocean holds us. Amniotic fluid shot with jumping mullets, jellyfish constellations too small to see, worming their stinging tendrils into skin. Waves spitting shark eggs and tangles of seaweed. Pelicans strafe the water. We gorge on chips, chug shitty beer under a rainbow umbrella. My city friends tell stories, innocent childhood beach trips, Florida vacations, coconut sunscreen. Back home, people saw gods in the surf, watery limbs and hair made of dirty foam. Fishermen went out to sea, came back, nets full of prawns to bombed out homes. Children tried to hide in the sand, evading military planes only to shatter on landmines. I never saw visions in the waves, but I knew a boat with no motor and no lights could take me across a lagoon at night. And if I heard a helicopter, I should sink my body into the ocean and trust it to hold me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was really wonderful. And I was very excited to hear the second poem as well. Thank you everyone for such extraordinary readings and sharing your work and moving us. I guess we are coming to the end of our day though. Any thoughts or comments, Ali?
Oh, just so wonderful to hear just a few of the poems from the book. Like, I wish we could all sit and read them all together. But yeah, really incredible. Thank you for those readings. And I hope you will share this book far and wide, because it just really is quite stunning. And thank you again to Manahal and to Chris and to Lise and everybody at ARC for doing this.
Yes, it's been a real joy to work with Manahil and Emily and Chris and all the folks at ARC. And you know, in the spirit of Lisa's initial comments about commitments around transforming literary institutions, keep sending your poems to ARC, you trans and non-binary and two-spirit folks. Let's see trans and two-spirit and gender non-conforming and two-spirit work in every issue. I guess that's it for me. Thank you all for making my afternoon and for helping us celebrate an issue that I wish was twice as large as it is, but which I'm very excited by at the same time.